What's going on, you guys? So I got some big news, some announcements to share, so let's get into it. Okay, for starters, the angle kit. You guys know I have been busting my ass to try to get an angle kit finalized and, basically get ready to do a full production run of the angle kit. So I'm going to be forking out a lot of cash to make like 10 sets of these angle kits or whatever. So I'm busting my ass to make sure everything's like absolutely perfect before I go and get everything cut. So you guys have seen stage 1 of the angle kit. Control arms, tie rods. Now these tie rod sleeves are basically tube, nut welded. Now on the production run side, I don't want to do that. I kind of want to do them machined. So we picked up this hex piece of aluminum and we're just going to cut this down, taper the ends out on a lathe, drill it out, tap it. That way the tie rod sleeves will be one nice piece of hex. You'll easily be able to adjust it, and it'll give it a nice, clean, finalized look to it as well. And maybe we'll send those out to get anodized. Not 100% sure. And then you guys have seen the knuckle. This is the knuckle that I've been running on my car. It's kind of crude, and you can tell I've changed pickup points. Like, this is where the tie rod used to mount, now it mounts down here. I just kind of left all that in there. One issue with this knuckle on the car is the amount of camber I have. So it does still have quite a bit of front camber, and that is maxed out at positive. So what I needed to do on that is change the actual coilover mount point. So basically rotate this. Now with this knuckle I couldn't do that, so it was kind of, work with what you got. And then you guys have seen the multiple stages of prototype 3D printed ones that I've done. So here's the first prototype 3D print out of the thick stuff, which, this was pretty much just garbage because that didn't work at all. I got glue on my hand. Anyways, that first 3D print didn't really work out too well. Needed some changes to be made to it. So then we went on to the second stage, which was how can we make this by laser cutting or plasma cutting or water jetting the parts. So I redesigned the knuckle, 3D printed it out of all the dimensional plates, I guess you would call it. That would be a weld together setup. And that's when I ended up with this. So 3/8, 3/8, 3/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. And then you can see we got sleeves in here. And then this will have a strap welded onto it and then welded all the way around, so it'll be nice and structural. And then you can kind of see how it'll be offset here, and this will all be plated in the final design as well. But it takes a bolt-on wheel bearing. And then this is the plug that actually slides into the back of the wheel bearing and bolts on, keeps everything tight and retained, because otherwise the bearing could essentially come out. So you do need some type of retainer in there. On a stock car, this is a rear wheel bearing, and the half shaft does that, but since there's no half shaft in it, I had to make some sort of plug that we can stick in there to kind of make up for the half shaft not being there. But I digress. So this will use a stock wheel bearing setup, and dimensionally side by side, these pickups are the same distance, height offset's the same, center's in the same spot. The only real difference is you can see that we did rotate the coilover pickup to reduce some of that negative camber that we were having in there. Now I did test fit this on the car, and the only issue that I had was the caliper bracket, you can barely see, is 3/4 of a millimeter too close this way. So we just need to change the offset here up 3/4 of a millimeter, and everything else dimensionally on this entire setup is spot on perfect. I had it bolted on the car, put the rotor on it, the caliper. With the caliper and the rotor on there, this is just plastic, so it was kind of flexing a little, and it was kind of flexing a little, and you could tell it was kind of wonked out because of that, but dimensionally, from measuring all the offsets and everything, this final design I have right here should work. Now, going from this to a finalized steel knuckle. The next step was going to be basically plasma cut out this out of plate steel and weld up a prototype. So what I did is I sent all the files over to my buddy Brett over at Fen Fabrication. He has a CNC plasma cutter, and he cut out all of the brackets. Basically, all the pieces needed to assemble the knuckle. There was one small issue though. This is not Brett's fault. It's not the machine's fault, anything like that. It's not the way he set this up. It's just the fact that it was all plasma cut. So when you plasma cut thick stuff like this, sometimes what'll happen, as the thicker you're going through the material, the torch flame can actually start to angle and taper out your cuts. And it unfortunately did taper everything out a little bit on one side, so the tolerances are smaller on one side than the other. And the way that I designed this is all the tolerances are pretty tight. They're all within like 3/4 thousandths of an inch. That way everything slip fits really nice and tight. But with the taper on it, none of it fits together. And it would honestly take me probably an entire day to go in there and hog it all out with a Dremel of some sort. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use this to build a final piece. Figured it was worth a shot to see if we can make it work. Unfortunately, plasma cutting it just isn't going to do it. So I'm actually going to need to send the CAD files out to somebody that can water jet or laser cut, because laser cutting is way more precise. Water jetting, same thing, way more precise, super clean cuts, no tapers, and it'll all fit together real nice. Now we know that the dimensions on this are good. I'm going to go in and change a couple things. I'll probably open up some of the diameters, because like the diameters inside of here have been tight on the 3D prints and the plasma cut. So I'm going to just go through and triple check all my measurements and make sure everything is spot on, that it isn't just in the cut on the material or the print shrinking. So I need to go through, double check some of the measurements. I do need to change this. So this spacing right now is 36 millimeter and it needs to be 35. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And the only other thing that I'm going to change is the offset height by 3/4 of a millimeter. And then everything on the knuckle should be good. And I'm just going to probably roll the dice and, outsource getting it laser cut or water jet. I'll probably do 3 sets at first, just because I don't really want to throw that kind of money at getting 10 sets cut right away if I haven't really built a complete one yet. So, but with 3, I'm sure I can make it work. And I'm probably going to lean towards getting it water jet, just so that the material isn't getting heat cycled through laser cutting. I don't know how bad laser cutting heat cycles, but plasma cutting this, I mean, I burned up 3 drill bits trying to open this 1/2 inch hole out to 1/2 inch. And yeah, well, you can see it's 1/2 inch here, but with the taper, it doesn't go all the way through. So I tried clamping that down in my drill press and opening it up, and I burnt up 3 drill bits trying to open up one hole. So I think they're a little bit hardened now. So maybe we'll go with water jetting instead of laser cutting, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, that's where we are on the angle kit for right now. And now the big news. So I've been talking about getting rid of these cheap shit eBay wastegates for quite some time. And guess what? There we go. So I've been talking about getting rid of these cheap shit eBay wastegates for quite some time now. Like I've said in the past, I really don't trust them. We kind of been running lower boost on it because we're just looking at the discoloration in them. We're kind of afraid of one of them sticking and maybe over boosting. So we've been kind of keeping it at low boost and running it kind of conservative for now. Exciting news is that we have actually partnered with TiAL for this year. So we have 2 of the TiAL MVR 44 millimeter wastegates and 1 of their blow-off valves. So all of them in blue. And I actually really like the color because it matches my paint almost perfectly. So that's kind of cool. It'll look really good on there. So we're going to be swapping all that stuff out, and I'm just really excited to be working with TiAL. It's a great company. I've used their products in the past, and like I said before on this, the only reason we weren't running the TiAL wastegates on it before is because it was not in the budget, and we had to get this thing done. And I had like $300 to my name to get this thing on the track, and we just threw some cheap shit gates on it and ran a couple events with it. But, you know, off season we planned on going with TiALs, and they actually stepped up and decided to help support the vehicle, the team, the program, and, you know, we're just really excited for what this year has ahead of us. And speaking of partners, we've actually also partnered up with Haltech this year. So we're not doing like full sponsorship deal with them or anything like that. But, you know, I've been saying it for years, and you know, I think Haltechs are great engine management systems. I've been talking about putting one on this car for years now. I know plenty of people that have used Haltech systems in the past. Brian from Tuner Tools, who actually does all my tuning, is very, very familiar with the Haltech systems, and he's been trying to push me towards one for years as well, which I've been wanting to get. And you know what? I actually finally bought one, so I'm really excited to get that in here. We're going to be changing out the ECU with a Elite 2500, doing a new engine harness on it, getting rid of the race pack dash. We're going with the AEM color interface dashes. And like I was saying before about changing everything over to CAN bus, we're kind of on the fence about that. It's something I really want to do, but budget, you know, we're going to see where we have to end up with that. So other than the things I just talked about, we're pretty much in line moving forward for the rest of the season, and we have a really good game plan together of what we need to do and where we want to go from here. Now, I do plan on doing a teardown video of these cheap shit eBay wastegates in comparison to the nice TiAL stuff, and same thing with the blow-off valve that I have on here, so I'm going to do some videos on that. And, you know, keep an eye out for that because that'll be coming out in the future. Wastegate dump tubes, not sure if I'm going to change those out, or you know, maybe I'll just reroute them or something. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this one. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, follow the build along, and until the next one, I'll catch you guys later.